water, fire, earth, air. Long ago, in about the 5th century BC, the Greek philosopher Empedocles assigned 4 elements to the 12 signs of the tropical zodiac. He assigned fire to Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, earth to Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, air to Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, and water to Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. But why? Why these assignments, and what do they mean? Why are the elements important in astrology? And what kind of information can they give us? What can they teach us? What do the elements have to signify about the signs and about how their reality manifests? Hi there, I'm Sorik. This is Sorik Cazimi. I'm on vlog number 4 now. Very happy about that. And yeah, I've been building up to this 4 elements thing for a while. I think it's because, like with every topic, I'm like, there's so much to cover. I'm not going to remember everything that I read or wrote to prepare for this. Because like I said, I'm not trying to do these scripted. But there's so much information I want to include. And I'm always like, oh, I gotta try and cram it all into this one video. But that's not how it is. This is just gonna be my first take on it, and then I'm sure I will, in the future, follow up with things that I forgot. Casually sprinkled in. But yeah, so, elements. Fire, earth, air, water. Let's see. So, one of the most striking incidences of me learning about the 4 elements started for me when I attended a like a kind of an informal Zoom lecture about medical astrology from an astrologer named Adira Osland. I believe their Twitter is at Astrology for Bros. They've made like at least one really funny skit, and I appreciate their takes on astrology stuff so much. But I attended this like little like Zoom lecture basically of theirs where they were talking about medical astrology, and the way that they described the 4 elements was so very striking to me that it got me thinking about them, you know, like not just like I'm reading about the elements and processing them, but like now I'm like deep cuts in my head coming up with my own observations and conceptualizations of them, right? So, oh yeah, so the way Adira Osland described them to me was that there is obviously, so there's the difference in the zodiac between polarities, right? So fire and air are on one polarity and water and earth are on another. So the way that traditional astrologers would define this is that they would call fire and air masculine signs, and they would call earth and water feminine signs. However, we here at the non-binary queer home of Sorik don't believe that it's helpful to perpetuate binaries where we're dividing people up by masculine and feminine when those aren't the only 2 modalities of expressing gender that exist. Yeah, so because I don't love the masculine-feminine dynamic, I have of course been searching for astrologers who have ideas about things we could call it instead. Some people go with yin and yang. I appreciate both of those philosophical contexts, but I don't use them for my astrology because they are embedded in like the Chinese, I want to say Confucian sort of like system of thought, and so that there is cultural context with those that I don't fully understand. So I have not used those for my personal astrology practice. I know I've heard Chris Brennan refer to them as odd and even signs at some point. So like Aries is sign number 1, so it would be odd. Taurus is sign number 2, so it would be even. So just like even and odd like that. So then odd signs would be fire and air, and then even signs would be earth and water. But then that one is like, it's fine, but like that's not really what I think about it as. The distinction that I've enjoyed using for myself there are 2 of them. So there's diurnal and nocturnal, and there's extroverted and introverted. But I know both of those get a little complicated, but hear me out. This is why I like categorizing fire and air versus earth and water like that. So fire and air, this goes back to what I was saying about what Sylvie Oslin said. Fire and air both go up. Water and earth both go down. I know, mind-blowing, right? Amazing, spectacular, never been heard before. At least by me. That was the first time I had ever heard the elements described like that. And it really made something click for me, because then I realized that like, oh, like, this is a good way to analyze the relationships between the elements. The basic premise of it was that fire goes up and in. It stays concentrated. When it's under the effects of earth gravity, it makes a nice little cone that we've probably all seen when we see a fire. Excuse me. Or all of us who can see, I should say, have seen when we've seen a fire. Earth is like kind of the opposite of that, in that it goes down, but it also stays concentrated. Earth coheses and stays together. And then, so fire goes up and concentrates inward, but air goes up and expands outward. You know, it spreads itself out. And water does that, but in the downward direction, because water will settle down on top of earth, spread, take the shape of whatever container it is in, right? Basic, easy things we know about the elements. Yeah, so that is a way that I liked thinking about the elements that I hadn't thought about before. And it really goes quite well with like the scientific conceptualization of like the 4 states of matter, which, if you didn't know, there's solid, liquid, and gas, and then there's plasma. I'll get to what that is. So solid, atoms that are in a solid structure are arranged in an orderly way, and they're not vibrating or like shifting position very much. They're, you know, if you've ever seen a diagram of a crystal or something, that's the structure of a solid. So yeah, so obviously solids are associated with earth, and then we've got liquid, which is water. No surprise there. So liquids, water, takes the shape of whatever container it's in, but it maintains its volume. And then we have air, which is air. And air will expand to whatever volume its container will allow. So earths and solids stay at a consistent volume. Water/liquid stay at a consistent volume. Air not a consistent volume. Its volume can expand to however big its container allows. And like water, then it also takes the shape of whatever container it's in. Up and out. And then fire, I was like, what is the equivalent for fire? And I think it might be plasma. Now, most candles or like bonfires or like propane flames or anything that we burn in like our everyday life is probably not a fire that's hot enough to classify as plasma. But a plasma is basically just what happens when air gets so superheated that it like converts into this other state of matter called plasma, where I think like the air molecules are maybe like vibrating so fast that they become electrically conductive. Something like that. Yeah. So with that, then you also have the assignments of speeds to the 4 elements. So we have earth is the slowest, water is slow but less slow than earth, air is in the opposite direction, it's fast, and then fire is the fastest. Now, I found it interesting that this is how Sylvie classified it. It's also Chris Brennan's paper on the planetary joys, which is also a fantastic read that I will link below, is also where I'm getting a lot of my information from, as well as the episode of the Astrology podcast that Chris Brennan did where he was interviewing Darby Costello, a well-established astrologer who she's written books about the 4 elements, and so she was being interviewed about that. I'll be referencing that a whole lot too because I watched it in preparation for this as review, and I was like, dang, I'm being reminded of so many things, and also learning so many new things or making so many new thoughts and associations, which is a very airy thing to do. I have 2 significant air placements amongst my main planets and stuff. So, familiar with air. So we've got I've elucidated some speeds and some directions of the 4 elements, right? So those are some differences that we can use to derive more meanings from other things. What's next? Oh, so I was thinking of the 4 elements and the qualities. I was like, if I had to condense this element into a single word that I needed to be evocative, obviously, what word would I use for the 4? So I came up with 4 Ds. 4 words that start with D that I think represent each element. And so for earth, I picked discernment. For water, I picked depth. For air, I picked discourse. And for fire, I picked drive. Although dream was a close second, and I'll get into why. But yeah, basically, so I picked discernment for earth because earth has that quality of being the most fixed of the elements. You know, it is steady, it's solid, it's reliable, it's consistent, it understands the value of things like effort, of practicality, of making sure that your bodily needs are met, making sure that your necessities are taken care of. Earth sign people might be the type to like show that they care by, like, you know, if you've got a family member who's like, hey, let me check up on your car for you, you know, do you need an oil change? Let me do that for you. That kind of loved one is like, that's kind of like a very earthy expression of love. So yeah, how else can we knock with earth signs? Oh, another like sort of opposition that we've got is that, so earth is assigned as a dry element opposed to water, which is a moist element. And water and earth signs are opposites on the zodiac wheel. If you'll look at it, Taurus is opposite to Scorpio, Cancer is opposite to Capricorn, Virgo is opposite to Pisces. So we have those three water-earth pairs that are in opposites. And so, yeah, Earth has that... Why did I bring this up? Oh, Earth has dryness to it. Earth signs will often be funny, but in a very, like, dry humor kind of way. I have met some extremely hilarious Earth signs, especially, like, I feel like with Capricorns, it's a lot of kind of impersonations kind of vibes, or having like a certain theatricality to them, especially if they also have an air placement. Virgos, I feel like, are very good at being like dry, and having like a truckload of knowledge to like just pull out at their whim, so that they can construct the most fantastic joke that is perfectly crafted for the situation. And then I feel like Taurus has a very, like, I want to say almost a sneaky sense of humor. They're masters of that kind of deadpan, like, delivery where it's like sarcasm that you almost can't tell is sarcasm unless you're paying attention. I feel like Taurus is good with that sort of humor. Then we've got water as the next fastest. So water signs, I picked the keyword deep for, or depth for them, because, well, they're deep. Water signs are, I guess, characterized by being in touch with feeling, or having to deal with the domain of the human experience that is related to feeling, to sharing, to being receptive to ideas, and also reflecting them back upon others. So whereas earth signs, another thing I didn't mention about earth signs are much more about embodiment. They're very dealing with the material body, your physical manifestation. So embodying things, the five senses are associated with earth signs. And yeah, and as opposed to that, like I was saying, water signs are more receptive. They're like receptive and sharing and connecting. You know, like water is a great solvent, chemistry-wise, and arguably it's the reason why life on Earth exists at all, is because water is so good at holding all of those preliminary chemicals in the primordial soup, so to speak. And it allowed for all of those different chemicals and proteins and amino acids and whatnot to link up together in this solvent of water and create life. So water has that life-giving quality. It's very nourishing, especially in terms of like the interplay between water and earth signs being opposite. They have like the opposite qualities complement and moderate each other in a way. So where like water will moisten the earth, you know, like when you plant things in the soil, you have to water them so that things will grow. But then on the other hand, if you have earth solidify water and sort of like help absorb some of its going everywhereness and help them take an intangible sort of thing, feelings, and concretize it into something touchable. Like for example, like if you're having a lot of feelings, then getting it out through the body by engaging in physical activity or like some sort of making art with your hands, for example, can be a way to get feelings out. So earth can help water express itself in that way, and water can help earth express itself in the other way. In this way, so fire and air signs then also have this sort of interplay between them. So reminder that for air signs I picked the keyword discourse, and for fire signs I picked drive, right? So air signs have a cool nature is the quality that's assigned to this. Winds can be cold, right? They bring a breeze. When it's sunny and hot out, when the fire is strong in the sky, yeah, many people long for a nice cool breeze of wind to come moderate that heat, right? So in that same way, fire and air can moderate each other's extreme qualities. So fire can be, Darby Costello in this episode of the Astrology podcast describes fire as being very kind of up in their head and connected to the imaginal plane, kind of like the most strongly of the elements. And so in that way, that's why I picked like drive and dream for fire signs, because they are, according to Darby Costello, so tapped into the imaginal realm. And like other keywords that I was throwing around for fire signs were also like being intuitive, having a lot of imagination, focus on the image part of that, or visualization, you know, because fire is very associated with sight and vision. There we go. Fire is associated with sight and vision. And that's why fire signs can be very caught up in like the image of what they feel like something should be. And because they are prone to believing in these images that they conjure up or get connected to, if you identify with an image that much, it can often also give you the drive and the passion and the energy to go after the concept of making that thing a reality. But if you're too up in your head and your imagination too much, that's also much like water signs being like kind of like needing an outlet to articulate. This is another thing that Darby Costello said, was that fire and water signs have a harder time naturally expressing themselves. Fire can more easily express itself through earth, and water can more easily express itself. Water can more easily express itself through earth, and fire can more easily express itself through air. So, how do you get images down? With air, you can talk about them. You can take that heat from the fire and sort of chill it out, bring it down, make it a controlled sort of fire, and speak to other people about it. Air signs benefit a lot from like speaking, writing, reading, listening. All of these things are great ways for air signs to get out of their heads and like get their ideas out into the world by speaking them or by communicating them in some way. What else did I want to say? Oh yeah, associations of the signs and the senses of the body. So fire associated with sight, air associated with hearing, water associated with touch, I believe, and then earth is associated with smell and taste. And then if you want to go with all of our other kind of physical senses, then maybe you can talk about the secret fifth element that I'm not going to talk about too much, but hey, it's quintessence or aether. There was a fifth element sometimes, but not in astrology, so we're not going to talk about it in this video. Yeah. But, let's see. So yeah, I already mentioned fire, associated visualization, dreaming, and intuiting. Fire is really good at making meaning. So like air likes to like collect lots of ideas or concepts or informations or observations. And then fire can help kind of draw threads and connect between those separate pieces of information and make meaning from them and draw conclusions from them. So in that way, fire is important to air, because if you have a whole bunch of unrelated scattered information but no way to draw meaning from it, then you're not really getting like the most help out of that information. But on the other hand, if you are just kind of someone who is all up in your head, connected to the other side, but like unable to share the things that you've learned from all of this imagination and dreaming, if you can't share that, if you can't do the airy thing and communicate it somehow, then any wisdom that you've gained is not really helping anyone but yourself, you know? Yeah. So, since I started off this episode with an Avatar The Last Airbender intro song reference, we might as well talk about the way that the four elements are portrayed in Avatar The Last Airbender and what they can tell us about how the elements are in astrology. So even though in the zodiac, fire and air signs are opposite to one another and water and earth signs are opposite to one another, there are conceptual differences that people will draw between fire and water and earth and air. And the Avatar show kind of alludes to this a little bit by the main character, Aang, who is the Avatar, is naturally an airbender. And so for him, learning the element of earth proves to be very difficult for him. And if we take that hint of what the elemental relationships might be, we can come to it with like, so Aang is an airbender, but he learns the water element next, right? And so in that way, if we go back to that like thing of air going up and out and water going down and out, so we can see that air and water share that kind of expanding property to them. And so that's like paralleled with Aang being able to apply his airbending kind of like viewpoint more easily to waterbending than he did to earthbending. Like Aang starts like picking up waterbending so fast that Katara, his friend who is a waterbender naturally, she starts becoming like envious of how quickly Aang is like progressing in his waterbending, which, you know, superpowered Avatar privilege. But what are you going to do about that? It's part of the plot. But yeah, so there's that. So we have air that goes up and out. But then we have earth that goes down and concentrates, right? So earth has this sort of like thing of being like double opposites to air in that way. And likewise, fire goes up and concentrates in, but water goes down and out. So water and fire are kind of double opposites in that way, you know, in those two qualities. And, oh, so these relationships between water and air being like similar in some ways in terms of the going out, and then fire and earth being similar in terms of going in. I noticed that they correspond with the Hellenistic astrology concept of Antiscia. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but if I'm not, rip to me. But yeah, so Antiscia is a concept in Hellenistic astrology that has to do with like, so certain signs of the zodiac are on either side of like a dividing line between the solstices, right? So the line between 29 Gemini and 0 Cancer, and then the line between 29 Sagittarius and 0 Capricorn. So right at the 0 Cancer, 0 Capricorn line is when the solstices happen. So the Cancer 0 degrees solstice happens around June 21st-ish every year, and that is the point that is the longest day in the northern hemisphere and the longest night in the southern hemisphere. In the north it signifies the beginning of summer, and in the south it signifies the beginning of winter. And then opposite for the 0 degrees Capricorn solstice that happens around December 21st every year, it signifies the beginning of winter in the northern hemisphere, but the beginning of summer in the southern hemisphere. So, woo, getting kind of raspy there. So the dividing line between the solstices, we take signs that are on either side of this line. So picture there's the line right here. It's like Gemini's on this side and Cancer's on this side, right? So they're Antiscia to each other. And then next we have Taurus is up here, Leo is up here. They're Antiscia to each other. Aries up here, Virgo up here, Antiscia. Pisces, Libra, Antiscia. Aquarius, Scorpio, Antiscia. And then Capricorn, Sagittarius, Antiscia at the top of that line. Yeah, so then you have those relationships, and in those Antiscia relationships, water and air signs are always Antiscia to each other. Excuse me, and fire and earth signs are always Antiscia to each other. And so that was like something that I thought was really cool, that I noticed myself in my own musings. Not sure if anyone else has pointed that out. I assume someone somewhere may have, but that was something very exciting to me in conceptualization. Yeah, okay, so back to Avatar: The Last Airbender. What are some other things I can say? Aang had an early instance where he tried firebending, even though, like, the firebending, like, person that he was trying to learn from, the firebending master that he was trying to become the disciple of, was like, no. Go master water and earth first, and then come back and learn fire. He was, like, not willing to teach Aang yet. And I think part of that reason is because fire and air are both like going up kind of elements. And so we see what happens is that Aang is like supposed to be controlling just like a teeny tiny fire that's on this little leaf and preventing it from burning the edges of the leaf. And he gets super bored and he starts like playing with bigger and bigger fires, and he loses control of some fire and he accidentally burns Katara. He burns her hands. And so that's like a very dramatic moment that like stops Aang from wanting to learn how to firebend for quite a while, up until the point at which it becomes necessary to the plot around the 3rd season. But yeah, so there's that thing of fire and air kind of feeding each other's upness, and then I presume that there is a similar sort of thing of water and earth kind of supporting each other's downness. But I don't have as much of an easy example on hand for that, so I'll have to think on that. So yeah, that's kind of air's relationship with the other elements through Aang's relationship with it. Another thing I wanted to mention is the relationship between fire and lightning. Lightning is a type of plasma. You remember how I said that super hot fire could be plasma? Lightning is a type of plasma, so it's like pure fire. And it's like that in the Avatar show too, where super advanced firebenders only can become lightning benders. And they can shoot lightning out of their hands, which is wild. Yeah. But an interesting interplay of that, like fire and air, or fire and water seem like double opposites kind of vibe that's going on. That's reflected in the concept of Contra-Antiscia, which is like Antiscia relationships between signs. By the way, I didn't mention Antiscia relationships. The Hellenistic astrologers kind of considered it like a secret conjunction, because it's like, so you've got the summer solstice line, right? So like signs on one side of it will have been receiving like a certain number of hours of daylight, and signs on the other side will have received a certain number, an equivalent number of those hours in nightlight. So they have equal amounts of, like, not equal, but corresponding amounts of, like, their night to day ratios are switched across these sides. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe if I remember to, I will throw up something here, a note or something to indicate how that works. Antiscia's kind of tricky. But anyway, so there's also there's that secret conjunction, and then there's secret oppositions that go across the equinox line of 0 degrees Aries to 0 degrees Libra, which, bear with me, I know this is getting technical. Those signs that are divided across that line are Contra-Antiscia, and the fire and water signs are Contra-Antiscia, and earth and air signs are Contra-Antiscia. So there we have this sort of like Hellenistic aspect that gets into those seeming opposition pairs as well, fire and water and earth and air. And so it's interesting because in the Avatar: The Last Airbender show, Uncle Iroh, who is a, like, you know, a well-known firebending master, and portrays himself as a very kooky old man, which he is. He is Prince Zuko, who is the son of the Fire Lord. Prince Zuko, Iroh is Prince Zuko's uncle, so he's Uncle Iroh. Everyone knows him as Uncle Iroh. You, if you've seen the show, you know. But yeah, so Iroh is telling Zuko at some point about lightning, and about a technique that Iroh innovated about redirecting lightning. And he says that he developed this technique of redirecting lightning by studying waterbenders and how they let the energy, the chi, flow through them and, you know, move in that sort of like fluid way. And so he uses that technique to redirect lightning if a lightning bender shoots them at you. So there's an important part of this video that I had to cut because I really wanted to talk about the 4 elements as they relate to medical astrology, but my brain is running out of steam and I have lost the ability to articulate and remember what the medical astrology points were. So let me just do kind of like a wrap up of what I've talked about so far today, and then I might have to do like a circle back around. I might have to circle back around to the 4 elements in another video, because like I've said a lot today, but I haven't said everything that I wanted to say, obviously. But I think I've given like a decent amount of information now. We've kind of like hopped back and forth between like different keywords and analogies between the 4 elements. I've given some kind of basic level descriptions of the qualities associated with them. I've offered some Avatar: The Last Airbender related analogies for them. And yeah, so I guess the earth to fire, like sort of earth at the bottom, water on top, air, and then fire, sort of like physical structure, is the thing that I probably mentioned the most through here, because it has become a big part of how I conceptualize the elements. Chris Brennan's paper that I linked below also explains something about how the 4 elements may have come to be associated with certain signs, and it has to do possibly with the Hellenistic concept of which planets were rejoicing in certain houses, aka planetary joys. But that is outside the scope of this video, so I will just say if you want to know more about it right now, you can go read that paper by Chris Brennan, or if you would like me to talk about it and describe it in another video, I can do that, because I still haven't really talked about the planets specifically, and I would be happy to sort of talk about that in a planets sort of way at some point. Yeah, I think we can wrap up with fire signs. Dreaming, intuiting, imagining, visualizing, and driving towards things. Those are some keywords that I'd like to emphasize. Air signs, discoursing, discussing, thinking, speaking, listening, expanding, spreading ideas and information. Water signs, we're going to go with feeling, touching, connecting, receiving, adapting. Adapting is one that I didn't talk about enough, but adapting and even conforming in some ways, like taking on the shape of other things or bringing other things into their shape in that way. And then earth signs, embodying, sensing, tasting, smelling, making something concrete, nailing it down. And also we could say like birthing, you know, like taking something intangible and making it tangible. And so I think those are the keywords that I would like to leave you with for the 4 elements today. If you liked this video, thank you. If you watched this video all the way through, definitely thank you. Hopefully you got some fun new information about the elements. I have, yeah, if you like the video, let me know by liking or commenting below. If you know someone who would like to know about the four elements more, even if they don't like believe in astrology necessarily, but if they're kind of curious and they're into symbolism, you can also share it with them maybe. You can subscribe to my channel if you'd like to be informed when I post a new video. If you'd really like to be noticed as soon as I post a new video, you can click on the bell icon below next to the subscribe, and it will send you a notification on your phone when I post a new video. Yeah, if you have any questions or topic suggestions, please also leave those in the comments. I will try to answer any questions if I can, and if not, I will give you suggestions about where to research that more. If I write really long paragraphs, I'm sorry, I'm extremely verbose. My Mercury is exalted. I literally can't help it. Except when I can. Yeah, anyway, thank you so much. It was so fun to talk about the four elements. I think I did a decent job. I got out some of the stuff that I wanted, even if I didn't get to everything, and I can always do another round of it because astrology is endless, and so are the associations we can draw from it. Isn't that wonderful? I love it. Okay, take care wherever you are, day or night, and I will see you all next time.